The night may be long and the dark may be deep, but the answers are there to be found. Whether it's the normal, the abnormal, or the paranormal, you're in the right place. Let's go beyond reality.
Good evening, good morning, and welcome. It's Beyond Reality Radio. I'm your host, J.V. Johnson. Thank you very much for being here. I'm not going to pretend that I'm not still tired from the Scaricon weekend, because I am. In fact, I'm so tired that when I shaved this morning, I have a great big nick on the left side of my face. I know those of you watching in the YouTube stream can see that, and I'm very sorry because it is nasty. But talking about coming back to a great show. Kudos to Slick Eddie and Orion for putting this one together for my return. But we've got two really, really interesting guests tonight. In the first hour, Ed Janowski, who is the paranormal trucker. He's going to be talking about his new project called Over the Road Paranormal, where he tags along with paranormal groups while he's on the road. That's pretty cool. That's going to be an interesting discussion. And it's not just ghosts. It's Bigfoot, it's UFOs, it's a bunch of different stuff. And he'll tell us what it's all about in the first hour of tonight's program. In the second hour, this is a real honor now. David Icke will be with us. David is a legendary conspiracy theorist. He watches and discusses everything. And he is trying to get to the truth on many, many issues. And there's actually a film out about his life called Renegade, the life story of David Icke. And he's got a new book out, too, called Everything You Need to Know But Have Never Been Told. So the second hour of the program will have David on, and that is going to be a real treat. Now, I just hope I'm up to the task, because it was a long, well, I'm not going to say it wasn't fun, because it was a lot of fun weekend at Scaricon, New England, and it's going to take me a few weeks to recover. But I'm anxious to be here, and I'm excited to open up this return with these particular guests. Just taking a quick look ahead, because that doesn't end there. Tomorrow night we've got David Moore, and David is an author who'll be talking about his new book on the psychology behind the UFO phenomenon called Evolutionary Metaphors, UFOs, New Existentialism, and the Future Paradigm. And then Thursday, I'm not sure, I know there might be a little switch here, but let's just say, for argument's sake, that it will be Scarlett Ravenswood. This is another interview I've been anxious to conduct. She is a tarot card reader and a business coach. And we'll be talking about paganism, divination, and witchcraft with Scarlett. And then on Monday, because Friday, of course, is a best of, Del Bigtree will be with us. This is something that I've been looking forward to as well. He's an investigative journalist, and he's the CEO of Informed Consent Action Network. He'll talk about his work about vaccines and pharmaceutical tyranny. Wow, a lot of great programs coming up here on Beyond Reality Radio. As always, we will take your phone calls later in the show. 844-687-7669 is the telephone number, and we will welcome those calls again later in the show. Let's see. Anything else I need to talk about before we get into the program? Yes, I do want to make sure you know the YouTube channel is alive and well. If you want to enjoy a video stream while you listen to the program, jump on YouTube and search for J.V. Johnson, especially if you don't have a radio station in your area that carries the program. If you do have a radio station, listen to it on the radio and watch us on YouTube at the same time. The YouTube channel has a bunch of archived programs. In fact, a year's worth of old programs and interviews, plus there is some special content as well there. Again, it's J.V. Johnson on YouTube. Go there, search it. You'll find it pretty quickly. And let's get into break here, because we have two guests. We've got a lot to go over, so we don't want to waste any more time. It's Beyond Reality Radio. We'll be right back. Hey, it's J.V. here. You know I've asked for your support in the past, and I'm going to do it again because it's really, really important. And there are a couple of ways you can support the show, and it's so inexpensive. Now, you can go to Patreon, and you can become a Patreon supporter, and we really, really encourage that. But there's also another way. If you look at the description of the podcast, if you're a podcast listener, and you scroll down to the bottom, there's a way to support the show directly through the podcast app. And it's only 99 cents a month. It's less than $1. You probably have that change in your couch right now. That $1 a month, less than $1, goes a long way in helping us produce this program, provide great interviews for you during the course of the week. I thank you in advance because the support is so important to the program. I'm still recovering from the weekend that was. Scaricon, New England was a terrific time. I'd like to thank everybody involved and thank to everybody who came and supported the event. And I'm still paying for it by being a little bit tired, but we're going to make it through this, I promise. Our first guest of the evening is the paranormal trucker. His name is Ed Janowski. And Ed, welcome to Beyond Reality Radio. It's an honor to have you here.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. It's an honor and a privilege to be on your show.
My father is Mr. Johnson. I'm JV, so I'm glad to have you here. So tell me,
we're just now being formally introduced. I can now call you JV.
Perfect. That works out very well then. Let's first of all tell me what a paranormal trucker is.
Really, I'm just a paranormal investigator. Paranormal researcher is what I prefer, but that drives a truck for a living.
Okay, and how long have you been interested, and how did you become interested in the paranormal?
Well, the paranormal has been it has surrounded me and enveloped me my entire life. I remember from my earliest childhood strange things going on, precognitive visions. My great grandmother, who immigrated from Poland before World War II. I actually found her cauldron in a spare room in her New Jersey apartment, and they told me about what she did and everything else like that. And so that kind of kicked off a little interest there. And
all right, I got to stop you. You just said so much in half a paragraph here that I have to break it down a little bit. Did you say when you were young you had precognitive dreams and visions?
Yes. Yeah, I'd actually be like sitting in my car seat in the back of the car, and I would tell my dad to hit the brakes, and as soon as he did, then another car would like zip across the interstate in front of us, almost hit in front of the car.
Wow, was this a regular occurrence?
Pretty much. It wasn't timed or anything. I couldn't put a clock on it, but it would happen, just instantaneously, and it would be like, whoa, stop. And, luckily for us, a lot of times, my dad listened to us. And, even one time my mom, just before she blew a rear tire on the station wagon, I told her, you have to move to the right. And if she wouldn't have, we would have went down over the side of a mountain.
Wow. Now, you said your dad would listen to us. Was it you and siblings? Did you or you and your mother? I mean, did you have somebody else in your family that shared these sensitivities?
Well, no, usually it just meant us because, like, all of us would be riding in the car.
Oh, I see. And
then, of course, being a little kid, like, 4 or 5 years old, you panic because you're worried about, somebody getting hurt.
Do you remember those visions? Do you remember how they came to you and how they appeared to you? Or was it more of just, I have a feeling we need to step on the brake here, so Dad, step on the brake?
Sometimes it was a feeling, but like the one time on the New Jersey Turnpike, it was actually a vision. I actually saw the car coming across the highway in front of us, and it was like kind of like a daydream type of feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the car, seeing it come over and moving in front of us, and then I said, Dad, Dad, stop. And he hit the brakes, and just as he did, I remember seeing the same exact car came across from the on-ramp and went across the 3 lanes in front of us.
Wow. How old How old were you
when this? Probably like about 4 or 5.
4 or 5 years old. And did it continue after that? I mean, has this followed you throughout your entire life?
It's not as frequent. I actually lost touch with it for a little while, but it's like with all adult brains, if you get wrapped up in your material world, you kind of lose touch with your psychic abilities.
Mm-hmm. Is that what you feel?
Like, it still happens on occasion, which has been handy with the truck on a couple of instances, but it doesn't seem to be as frequent as when I was younger.
Wow. And then you went on to talk about the fact that you found your grandmother's cauldron. Now, where did you say she came from?
She came over from northwestern Poland.
Okay, so she was in Poland, and you learned about the history of this cauldron.
Well, I discovered it. We were visiting. I only got to see her like a couple of times ever in my lifetime. And we were visiting her in her, she had a basement apartment in an old brownstone in Jersey City. And I remember we were visiting, and I went behind this black curtain, and I found it back there in the room. And, of course, everybody caught me and hustled me back out of there. And then later on, they told me, that, great-grandma was a witch, and that was her special room, and she had dipped wax to help people out with their health problems and whatnot.
So was the cult? I mean, there's kind of a stereotypical Hollywood version of a witch in which they're wearing a particular type of costume, have a particular type of look, and
no, she wasn't a scare con attendee at all.
Well, and then they're standing over a big cauldron that's on a fire, and they're stirring something, and they're putting ingredients like toads and whatever in there. Is that the kind of cauldron you're talking about, or is this something far less
It was the same shape, and it was still black, but it was much smaller. It was probably, I would say, maybe like the size of like a 5-pound coffee can.
Okay.
So it wasn't really large, but it was still it was heavy black metal, and it hung on a tripod. And she had this in her room,
in her special room. Yeah.
Yep, her ritual room.
Yeah.
I guess would be the best way to describe it.
So when you discovered that, it sounded like the family was trying to keep you away from it, and then you must have looked into it after the fact to get more information. Do you know what kind of witch she was, and was she a practicing witch, and did you learn anything from that?
The only thing that they ever told me was that she was a witch, and that her specialty was the dipping of the wax to help people with their health problems.
Okay. And what year? How long ago was this? Was this recently?
Oh no, gosh! This was when they told me about it. I was probably, oh boy, I may have been when they first actually got around to telling me what it was all about. I was probably maybe about 10 years old.
Okay, and was she still alive at the time?
Oh no,
Okay.
She passed away long by then.
Okay, when did she pass away? If you don't mind me asking.
That I don't even remember, to tell you the truth.
What can you tell? Was it like the 50s, 60s, 70s? Or do you have no idea?
It would have been in like the 1970s.
70s, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so you developed you had some sensitivities as a child that made you very, very curious about the paranormal. You discovered that your grandmother was a practicing witch at some point, and then you start growing into an adult, and you obviously continued your interest in the paranormal. And it's not just ghosts, right? I mean, you're interested in cryptids and UFO and other sorts of phenomena as well.
Oh yeah. It's like every time something new came up, it was a new exciting adventure for me. But I tried to limit it down, especially with this project that I'm on. To just hauntings and UFOs and Bigfoot. I've never actually seen a Bigfoot yet. I'm still working on that part. But
a lot of people are.
I've had UFO experiences and plenty of haunting experiences.
Yeah, a lot of people are still looking for that first Bigfoot encounter. So before
I thought I had one a few weeks ago, but it just turned out to be a kid walking out of the woods down the hill.
Some of the kids that live around here, I can understand the confusion. Were you a member of a paranormal group before you became what we were saying, the paranormal trucker? I mean, were you doing this at home for a while first?
I've always kind of like explored it and investigated on my own. Being a truck driver, it's like it's really tough to be a member of an investigation team, because you just don't have the availability and the reliability that a team needs in order to build a relationship with you. And my brother just texted me. He told me she was a white witch and a coven leader in 1977.
Oh, so you got a little help.
1977 is when she died.
Got a little help from your brother. Nice.
Yeah, he's listening to the show.
Oh, terrific. That's great. Did you, how many days of the week are you on the road with the truck?
I'm out on a 28-day cycle. I'm out on the road for 28 days, and then I go home for like 4 or 5.
Did you say you're on the road for 28 days straight?
Yeah.
And then you go home for 4 or 5, and then you do it all over again?
Yeah, all over again.
So
I've been doing this for off and on. I've been doing it for almost 40 years.
Oh wow, yeah, that would make doing anything at home almost impossible.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, I haven't done it consistently. Like, I've been in service and I joined carnivals and circuses and been a carpenter and a builder, and I've worked on farms. So I've done a lot of different things.
So the project is Over the Road Paranormal. Tell us what that is.
Over the Road Paranormal is it's a combination project. It's it's an investigation team, which I have my own home team, and we're also a video production company. And the trick behind it is because I'm out on the road. What we're doing is we're teaming up with other investigation teams that are out across the country, and we're looking at their evidence, and then we're going to go in and try and duplicate it to create, an independent validation and into in a scientific method in order to take paranormal research out of the pseudoscience field and bring it into what's the word I want?
Some sort of a legitimate science, I would say. At least a practice.
Yeah, we're trying to bring it into legitimate theoretical science is what we're trying to get to.
Yeah. You said we. Is there somebody traveling with you?
No, I say we is in because a lot of the people that I've talked to, the teams that I've approached about it, are really excited about the whole idea of it.
I say so.
Because it's a new concept on it. I mean, you go on YouTube and it's just polluted with all these spook factor shows.
Yeah.
That were oh Jesus, I hate it when I get
yeah. No, I know a lot of these shows were created with the express intent to offer what we would consider to be extreme reactions and cases to things that may not be necessarily what they seem. And, that's just the nature of television. Everybody's looking to outdo the show that was successful, and it just becomes a kind of a snowballing effect. But, hey, we're going to go to break right now. When we come back, we're going to continue our conversation with Ed Janowski. He is the paranormal trucker, and his new project is called Over the Road Paranormal. We'll find out more about it when we come back. People in the chat room, when we said we had the paranormal trucker on the program tonight, started mentioning that particular song by C.W. McCall called Convoy. I don't know if you remember it. I certainly do. I don't know if our guest, Ed Janowski, remembers it. Remember that one?
Oh, yeah, I remember. I grew up on that song.
Yeah, it's a great tune. It was all part of the CB craze at the time, too, right? Not just truckers, but CBs were big at the time, yes. Which, if you don't know what a CB is, a lot of people don't even know now. It was a citizens band radio, which do truckers still use them?
Not nearly as much anymore. It's kind of died out, especially with the advent of the cell phone and talk text technology.
Yeah, like everything else, that technology has changed everything, right?
Yeah. I mean, just I still carry one, and you still hear guys every once in a while get on there, but they do more complaining than they do anything else these days.
They used to, people, everybody would have their own special handle, which was a name they went by, and it had to be licensed. There was a whole bunch of weird stuff. Anyway, that's not what our discussion is tonight. We're talking about Over the Road Paranormal. Now, at what point did you start this particular project, Ed? When did Over the Road Paranormal begin?
Over the Road Paranormal actually I first started putting the whole thing together probably like about 10 years ago or more. Because it's investigating the paranormal, the supernatural, UFOs, Bigfoot, and Loch Ness Monster, all these wonderful things going on in our universe. And because the being on the road took me away from, being able to sit down and watch the TV shows like In Search of and Discover and all of these others, that I started wondering about, if I couldn't do something with that, if I couldn't create something around that. And then all of a sudden Ghost Hunters came on TV. And, Ghost Hunters and Ghost Hunters International, which I still to this day, I love and miss them. I miss both shows. They came the closest to fulfilling what I wanted out of an investigation show. And I'm glad to hear that Jason is back out with the guys, and they're doing a new show. So.
Yeah, they are. For those of you who haven't heard, the new show is called Ghost Nation, and it's Jason and Steve Gonzalez and Dave Tango, and they're doing a little bit of what you're doing in the sense that they are working with various paranormal groups around the country and examining and maybe re-examining tough cases. And that show is most likely to debut on the Travel Channel. It will be on the Travel Channel regardless, but it's most likely to debut in October of this year. So we're all excited about that. So how does your team approach the investigation? And when I say your team, again, I'm a little confused here. It's you and whoever you're meeting up with as you travel to do an investigation, right?
Right. If it's in a way, what's the best way to put that? If this is a host team that's bringing me in, where I'm tagging along basically on their investigation, the way that we set it up is the host team pretty much runs the entire investigation. I'm just there helping out and observing and recording. They decide on the location that best represents their group, and they've collected the best experimental data. And I come in, meet with them. They show me what they think is the best that they've got, and then I get all the details of what happened that allowed them to collect that particular piece of evidence or data, however you want to express it.
Right.
And then during the investigation that I do with them, we try to duplicate the exact conditions that they had. As much as humanly possible, we try to duplicate the conditions that created that particular piece of evidence. And hopefully we can catch it. And then after the investigation is done, we go back and we do a separate analysis off of the equipment that I run, and what they caught, they send, they'll send to me if they catch anything, and then we go through and we compare. We do the analysis, then we meet back up and we do a comparison as part of our reveal. And if we were successful, we will have caught and duplicated the same piece of evidence they had, thereby giving them validation on their location.
Now, is this being filmed while you do all this?
Yes. Yep. I'll be. I carry a camera and a digital recorder and I got digital cameras. A whole schmear. I got a couple of boxes of stuff that I carry around.
Yeah.
With me.
Have you been doing this? I mean, have these investigations already taken place? Some of them.
We're actually still in the whole negotiation thing because, need to make sure everything is done legally so that, neither team gets, I don't get in trouble with them. They don't get in trouble with me. We don't get in trouble with the location.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, all I can envision here is Rolling Hills being on your list of places to investigate and you pulling up in an 18-wheel. Do you let the truck idle while you're doing the investigation?
No. The truck has that. I do have the truck has its own auxiliary power unit, so I can run the air conditioning.
Oh, nice. Okay. All right. But, I've got to ask you about something I was reading in your experiences here. You were in the Air Force, and you said you had an experience that you were ordered to never discuss. Are you still under that order, that gag order, or can you tell us what happened?
I don't think I am. It's a little bit of a painful experience, but I will do my best to try to explain it to you as concisely as I can.
Okay.
It was in the late spring of 1982, and I was in what they call the casual squadron. I had broken my ankle. So
I was in casual squadron for a while too. For a while too. I'm very familiar with it.
And while in the middle of the night one night, I still don't know what woke me up, but I woke up and I went down to the end of the hall, to the room that these two guys shared. And the one fella was he was laying on his back, in the stigmata position, and he was babbling on. He was talking, but I couldn't understand what he was saying. And his friend was there attending him, and instinctively, I guess, I reached in and I grabbed a hold of him to, try and hold it, because as far as I knew, he was having like an epileptic fit or something, and I didn't want him to get hurt. And after he had come out of his trance or whatever it was, I had the sensation in the palms of my hands that I had been wounded, like nail holes in my hand. And
did you just say nail holes in your hand?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, just like if I was going through the stigmata, only I wasn't feeling the pain of it at the time. And when I asked these guys about what was going on, they told me it was part of their religion, that it was they called it a Holy Ghost burn, and which didn't make any sense to me at the time. I'd never heard of anything like that.
Yeah.
And some amount of time passed. I really don't recollect how long this whole thing took, but the next thing that I know, I'm laid out on the floor in the same position, and I'm going through the torments of the Christ. And I don't know how long it went. I remember hearing what sounded like babbling to me. Physically, it sounded like babbling, but I could understand the words in my head.
What was happening to you physically at this point? Were you, I may have missed it, were you passed out or?
No, I was conscious during during the actual stigmata section. I was actually awake, and I remember having the pain of around my forehead and in my hands and my feet and in my side. Which was, frightening and baffling all at the same time, because nothing was happening, but yet I couldn't move, and I had this whole thing going on. And the night guard came up on the second floor and stuck his head in the room and said something which I don't even remember anymore. But the next thing I know, that he had called in the night watch sergeant, and by that time everything was done and over with, and he told us that we had to keep it to ourselves, and we would have to talk to the commander the next morning. And when the captain came in, he called us into his office, and he was the one that actually put the gag order on us. He told us that we could go talk to a minister if we wanted to, or we could talk to our sergeant, but we couldn't discuss it amongst ourselves. We couldn't discuss it with any other airmen or medical personnel or anybody.
So do you think that's an extension of the sensitivities that you experienced as a child?
It may have been. It wound up altering my perception of religion quite a bit afterwards.
How so, Ed?
Well, after I got discharged out, which was shortly after that because of another issue that I had, I wound up going back to my hometown and speaking with a man who, to me, was a religious icon. He was a mentor to me when I was in high school, or my early years of high school, when I was really quite the little Bible-thumping little Christian back then.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him exactly what happened, and he looked me straight in the face, and he told me that I was demon-possessed, turned his back, and walked away from me. He wouldn't speak to me after that.
Oh, wow.
So, that, kind of like altered my perception on how I should talk to people about it. And then, of course, that launched me into my own religious investigation, and kind of brought me to where I am at my religious beliefs now.
Did you, at that point, have a concern that the religious community was turning their back on somebody, meaning you, that needed help?
That was the feeling that I had.
Yeah, that's odd.
it was odd. And it didn't make any sense to me whatsoever. And
yeah, all right. So we're gonna run out of time. So I want to get to a few more questions here. You have we talked about Bigfoot a little bit, but you have a bit of a fascination with Bigfoot. Why?
Well, the fascination, because it's so possible for the creature to actually exist. And I don't buy into any of the things that it's an alien creature or it's a phase shifting creature or anything like that. I actually believe that it's a physical creature. We just haven't caught up to it yet.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of credence goes to that too. I mean, the mountain gorilla was considered a hoax until the 1920s when it was actually discovered to be a living creature. So I think Bigfoot itself is a living, breathing being. It's just very rare, and it's very smart, and it's very hard to track down. And, a lot of people have said that they've got scat and they've got hair evidence and everything else, but I can't get any of them to kind of give up their reports so that, and you can take a look at them. But Bigfoot has always been a very fascinating creature because, I've been a hunter a good portion of my life too. So it's like, it's just another creature out there that can do things that, we've lost touch with.
Yeah.
And
the quest for hard evidence that Sasquatch or Bigfoot exists has been going on effectively. I mean, the sightings have gone on for centuries, but the real quest to find evidence and get a hold of this creature or evidence of the creature has been going on since the Patterson film in earnest in the late 60s, early 70s.
I love that film too.
Yeah, a lot of people do, and many people still claim it is the most important evidence that we have, which is a bit difficult to understand given an age where almost everyone is carrying around a high-tech video still camera in the form of a smartphone. Plus, we have drone technology and thermal technology. It seems as though, and I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but it just seems as though we'd have something by now. Don't you think?
Well, yeah. But I think a lot what happens is because people aren't used to chasing animals anymore. They're used to chasing their dogs and their cats. They're not used to wild creatures. And I think a lot of times what happens is when they do run across one of these creatures, they get so excited and so shook up that they can't.
Well, I've heard that before. Yeah, I've heard that before. I've heard people say, I turned the corner and there it was, and I should have taken a picture, but I was kind of frozen in place and didn't know what to do.
Right.
And then by the time I had my senses about me, it was gone. That's a pretty common thing, and it's easy to understand how that could happen. But I don't understand how that would happen to people who are out intentionally looking. There are people that do this pretty regularly. It seems as though those folks would be prepared, but maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong.
It's just like deer hunting. You can hunt deer for years and years, but every time you see that one big buck, your adrenaline surges.
Sure.
You can't control it.
Right. Yeah. It's involuntary.
So even if you're out there tracking down Bigfoot, you see it, your adrenaline's going to surge right through the roof, and your brain is going to do things that you don't expect it to do.
All right, so what's next for Over the Road Paranormal?
Well, like I say, right now we're talking to a whole bunch of teams. We're getting them lined up. We still want a whole bunch more, and we're going to start doing our filming, and then we're going to release our first episode. Is we're going to release on Halloween. We thought that was a fitting night to open everything up and start releasing all of our shows, and we're going to keep chasing the unknown from there.
And you say release your first episode. Where can people find it?
Right now, we're just going to be on YouTube and Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
I got a YouTube channel started. I got kind of a goofy video that I started up last year just to kind of hold it open.
Right.
And then of course we have our Facebook page. And then we're going to link into our website, which is still being built, but it's up and we have the domain and everything set up.
Well, I wish you luck. We're out of time now, Ed. I appreciate you sharing your story with us, and particularly looking forward to seeing what you come up with when the show debuts on Halloween.
Right. That was really fast.
It goes really quickly, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
All right. Well, thanks for being here. We'll hopefully have a chance to talk to you again as the show gets a few episodes under its belt and we can see what you've come up with. I'm your host, J.V. Johnson. As we enter our second hour of the program tonight, we're excited that our guest this hour will be David Icke. David is a legendary conspiracy theorist. We're going to be talking about his career and a new film called Renegade, the life story of David Icke. By the way, his website is davidicke.com, and there's a book out called Everything You Need to Know But Have Never Been Told. David, welcome to Beyond Reality Radio. It's a real honor to have you here.
Oh, it's a pleasure, JB, even at this hour.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know that you have to get up awfully early to do these types of late night America interviews. How's that feel for you? Is it all right?
It's not too bad, actually, because I'm a morning person. I'm a morning and afternoon person. I start to kind of fade off, early evening. So it's not a bad time for me, really.
Well, then we're a perfect match because I'm a late night guy, and this works out really, really well. I'm really excited to have you here. You've done so much, and I want to ask you how this kind of started for you. At what point did you start raising an eyebrow to some of the things going around us that made you start looking into them to the point that you've brought them to the public consciousness?
Well, I mean, your show is about reality, and I had an introduction to the fact that reality was not like we thought it was in the very opening up of this journey for me, because in 1989 through to 1990, early 1990, I was a BBC television presenter. I was a national spokesman for the British Green Party. And I was kind of getting on with my life. But I started to have this constant experience that if I was in a room alone, I wasn't alone. It was like there was a presence there. And this is not something that had been with me, through my life. I've been always open-minded from when I was a kid. I didn't buy, this world is all there is. And I didn't buy what my father used to call bricks and mortar religion. But I was open to other explanations for life. I instinctively, from when I was a little kid, didn't feel that, what we perceived the world to be was how it necessarily was. But this kind of experience had never happened to me before. And then through 1989, and particularly into early 1990, this presence, when I was in a room alone, got more and more and more powerful. Until in March 1990, or about then, I was in a hotel room in London working for the BBC. And this presence in the room was so tangible that I said out into the room, if there's something there, would you please contact me because you'll drive me up the wall. and a very short time later, this whole other world opened up for me in the sense that, my son, Gareth, who's now a strapping singer-songwriter who works for me in what I with me rather in what I do. No one works for me; they work with me. And he was with me, his little boy, and he was in this bookshop while I was talking to someone outside. And well, it wasn't a bookshop; it was really a newspaper shop and a tourist shop, but it sold books. And I walked in to the shop just to say to him, "Come on, Gaz, we'll go up and get some lunch." And as I stood there at the entrance to the shop, it's still there, just down the road from me where I'm speaking now. It was like the atmosphere changed around me. I didn't know what it was then. I know the electromagnetic field around me had changed, and it was like my feet were being pulled to the ground. It was like my soles of my feet were burning slightly. That's the feeling I got. And what I heard going through my mind wasn't a voice, but it was a very, very strong thought form, which said, "Go and look at the books on the far side." So I'm standing there thinking, what the heck is happening? And I walked across to these books in a daze. And in among these romantic novels, which is another thing that was in my mind at the time, but this book only sells this bookshop, news shop only sells romantic novels. And I went over there, and there were the romantic novels, but right in the middle of them was a woman's face on a book. It was called Mind to Mind. And I picked it up because it was different to the rest, turned it over. And on the back, reading the blurb, it was the life story of a psychic called Betty Shine, who lived in England. And so as soon as I saw the word psychic, having never, been into that arena before or been to a psychic before, I thought, I wonder if this woman might pick up what's been happening to me for the last year. So I read the book in 24 hours, contacted her, didn't tell her anything that had happened to me. I had arthritis from when I was about 15, when I was a footballer, and I told her that maybe her hands-on healing, this exchange of energy that is, might help my arthritis. Didn't tell her anything else. And I went the first time, 2 times, and we had a nice chat, very interesting. The third time I went, I was lying on or sitting up on this medical type bench. She was doing the hands-on healing on my left knee. And suddenly I felt like a spider's web on my face. And again, I didn't know what it was at the time, but it was an electromagnetic field that I was experiencing, the kind of thing that makes your hairs on the back of your neck go up when you're in various situations of fear or emotional, football crowd or something. And this hit me because I'd read in her book, she said that when other levels of reality are trying to lock into you, you sometimes feel like a spider's web on your face. So I didn't say anything to her. And I'm thinking, this is what I read in her book. My mind was going, what have you got yourself into, Icke? What's going on? And about 10 or 15 seconds later, she launches her head back with me not having said anything. And she said, my God, this is powerful. I'm going to have to close my eyes for this one. And I'm sitting there, a television presenter with the BBC, national spokesman for the Green Party. And suddenly I was being told through Betty Shine that I was going to go out on a world stage and reveal great secrets, that one man cannot change the world, but one man can communicate the message that can change the world. And that I was going to face enormous opposition, but they, quote, will always be there to protect me. And of course, I'm sitting there thinking, what?
Yeah.
But something, you will know what it's like, JV, when
Sure.
you have these sensitivities. Your conscious mind is going, what? But something intuitively says, you've got to go with this. You've got to go with this. And I have. And what was told to me at that time, in that experience, and one other experience with Betty Shine a week later, is that I was going to go out on a world stage and reveal great secrets. And what was going to happen is that I was going to be led to knowledge, and at other times knowledge would be put into my mind. So I would just know things. And all I can say is that from the moment I left Betty Shine's house, it started. I would walk with amazing coincidences and synchronicity, I would walk into information in the form of people, personal experience, documents, books, etc., all different sources, which were actually like pieces being handed to me. And they were so synchronistic. It was almost like the pieces were in the order that was most easily to understand them. And so in those early years after that Betty Shine experience, all the information was about what I would call the 5 sense world. It was about secret societies manipulating human society and networks of interbreeding bloodlines, quote, the elite manipulating human society, etc. That what appeared to be the reasons for world events were not actually the reasons for world events. And then it went into other levels, and the real big penny drop for me, actually it was like a banking system drop, not a penny, was when in very early after the millennium, the sequence of information became the nature of reality itself, the illusory nature of reality, which allowed me to see that because this world is not the solid everything apart from everything else world that we experience it as, that the so-called paranormal was not only not para, but perfectly normal. But the nature of reality started to explain how these apparently impossible paranormal situations, events, quote, miracles, were actually possible. It's very straightforward once you realize how it works. But if we believe in a solid, everything apart from everything else world as we experience it, then all those things are impossible. And that's why so-called paranormal phenomena is waved away by vast numbers of people who've been brought up, I would say, programmed systematically from cradle onwards to believe in a world that it isn't.
Is this a world that we've been taught to believe it is, the way we think it is, versus the way it actually is?
Yeah, I mean, what I've understood more and more as the years have passed, because this synchronicity has just gone on and on to present day, it's the power of perception. Perception is the foundation of everything. I have this phrase: what you believe, you perceive, and what you perceive, you experience. So this perception becomes reality. And even in a real 5-sense, simple way, perception becomes reality because you take on a perception of how things are. And if you take that on so rigidly and don't operate as I do with the old phrase attributed to the Greek philosopher Socrates, wisdom is knowing how little we know, which keeps your mind constantly open to new understanding. If you don't go down that road and you think the way I have been told to perceive reality, and the way that perception of reality is constantly underpinned and confirmed by what I call the postage stamp consensus, this narrow band of information and explanation that you get taught from the earliest age by, first of all, your parents who've been through the system that you're about to go through, but also through the education system, which dominates the information you receive to form your perceptions throughout your formative years. The mainstream media is constantly pounding out the same version of reality. All the peers around you virtually are confirming that reality is how things are because they've been through the same process of perceptual programming. Mainstream science, which is overwhelmingly quantum physics apart, is part of this whole belief system. Mainstream medicine is part of this belief system. And so that's basically all you're hearing. Yeah. And so if you take this on, part of this perception becomes reality is that you will not look at other information and possibility that challenges the bubble that you're now in. You will call people crazy, you call them dangerous, you'll call them insane because they are seeing a different reality to you. But what I've found, which is incredibly encouraging, I don't know if you have too, that as I travel around the world, is that there is an awakening going on in the sense that people are in numbers like never before who are looking at the world and saying, well, maybe it's not the way I thought it was. And they're becoming more open to seeing other explanations. And, obviously people like me are now being subject to massive censorship because they don't want this information in all its forms circulating because they want to control reality, they want to control perception, and that control comes by controlling information that people receive. That's how we form our perceptions.
We only have a couple of minutes before we have to go to break here, but, in an age where there are so many new media for which we can get messages out, you're absolutely right. More and more people are starting to question and understand that the story they've been told might not be the real deal. But at the same time, we are starting to see the censorship come full circle and start attack some of these media outlets, whether it's YouTube or whether it's websites in general being not found through Google. Are these the same forces coming to bear on people like you, David, that have controlled the media and controlled education and controlled this whole what I call a bubble from before these media existed? Or have they figured out now they have to control this?
Exactly, and that list that you just made all comes back to one word: control, or information, control of information.
Right.
And so as information changes in the way that it's communicated and received, so that medium also has to be controlled. Do you remember they controlled the newspapers, they controlled the television when that came in?
Mm-hmm.
You know, the number of media organizations in America is tiny that owns basically the American media. So then you move into the Silicon Valley area of information communication, which is now increasingly the dominant one. And of course, they control that too. It's no accident, JV, that your Facebooks and your Apples and Twitters, etc., they move as one unit when it comes to censoring people that they target. And also, what's also happened to some of these people that have been censored, and of course the numbers getting greater all the time,
every day,
is that payment systems are coming in. Your PayPals are coming in and saying, no, we're not going to let this website use our systems. And because they dominate the payment systems, as they dominate Silicon Valley's internet communication, they can shut people down and, crucially, control the narrative.
These new media, whether it's YouTube or Facebook or search engines like Google, which also happens to own YouTube, and Facebook owns Instagram. I mean, all these things are all basically seated in the hands of a very few people. The power to influence and the power to censor. Now, I know, because this program is on YouTube, that YouTube is continually changing its criteria and making it more and more restrictive for anyone who has an idea that might fall outside of the mainstream thought and the mainstream consciousness. Is that what you're experiencing as well?
The thing is that I have this phrase, know the outcome and you'll see the journey. If you don't know the outcome that this is going towards, then events every day can seem to be random and have no connection, no pattern. But once you know where we're being taken, then daily events take on a very clear perspective of actually what we're dealing with. And where we're being taken, and this is true, this know the outcome and you'll see the journey across the great swathe of subjects, which kind of all feature in Renegade. Where we're being taken in relation to freedom of speech is to a point where the population only receive what the authorities want you to see and hear. Ultimately, this cabal that are behind the authorities, many people in authority, most people in authority have no clue who's actually pulling the strings ultimately from the shadows. They just do what they're told. And take their salary and get on with their lives. They don't realize where it's all coming from. Where it's all coming from is what I've spent 30 years uncovering. And therefore, if you want to completely dominate what people see and hear, then freedom of speech has to go.
Yeah.
Because while you have freedom of speech, you have the freedom to challenge the official narratives. So you can't reach your goal. So what we're seeing is the systematic, step-by-step, what I call the totalitarian tiptoe, step-by-step deletion of freedom of speech. And this is why you're having these stages. I mean, people like Google and YouTube are even calling them stages, particularly YouTube, where they have a censorship point where more and more people fall into that definition of what should be censored. And then you have another stage where it's more extreme and more people are pulled into being censored. And we've had one of those again very recently, not at least in the last few days or week or so. And so it's systematic. And because you have this force in the shadows that controls Facebook, that controls Google and Google-owned YouTube, also Instagram and WhatsApp that are owned by Facebook and Twitter, you have this ability through multiple platforms that in the public arena appear to be independent. I'll throw Amazon in there as well, that are actually ultimately controlled by the same force. So they sing from the same song sheet.
We're going to run out of time with you very quickly. This discussion is making time move fast. I want to move on a little bit. As you look at all of this, what do you think is the biggest danger facing us as a civilization or as humanity?
Oh, no question about that. It's having the human brain and human mind connected to artificial intelligence. Mm-hmm. That's the end game. I've been writing about this and warning about this for so long that the end game is to see, up to this point, perception, which is how humanity is controlled. Control perception, you control their behavior, because behavior comes from perception, has been by controlling information received. The end game is for perception to come direct from AI. And this is not some conspiracy theorist, which is a CIA term, by the way, put out in the 1960s when media organizations were encouraged by the CIA to use that term to discredit people who were questioning the Kennedy assassination. That's where it came from. And so you have this situation where it's not just me pulling it out the ether. People like Ray Kurzweil, an executive at Google who's called a futurist, who claims an 80% record of predicting future technology, he is openly talking about the fact that by 2030, AI will start to be connected to the human brain. And in his own words, as time goes on, AI will do more and more of human thinking until there's human thinking as we perceive it and experience now will be basically negligible. This is what I call in the books the assimilation. It's the assimilation of human consciousness, human perception, human awareness into AI. And then you ask this question, who owns and controls AI? Because whoever controls AI is going to be controlling, in this scenario they want, human perception directly. Will be just humans will be just computer terminals on an AI internet, and this is and this 5G now that's being rolled out without any testing, and the telecommunications companies have admitted that on Capitol Hill. There's no testing into the physical and psychological effects on humans of 5G, which are going to be catastrophic, as independent scientists have pointed out. 5G is absolutely crucial, that level of communicative power, to making this AI net, what they call the smart grid, work. And this is the end game, JV. This is what people need to understand more than anything else, where this is going.
Is there any way we can prevent this? It seems like this train has left the station and it is steaming full force in one direction.
Well, yes, it is. But, you can find solutions to problems, which usually lead to more problems. Or you can do the intelligent thing, which is to remove the cause of the problem. The cause of the problem is humanity has given its perceptions away. It's conceded its right to perceive away to this tiny few people. Because it has allowed its perceptions to be formed from information received only from what I call the mainstream everything. And the mainstream everything is going to give you one tale, one script, one sense of reality, one sense of possibility. If people will just open their minds and allow themselves to explore other explanations for what's going on. I mean, they're not trying to censor alternative information because it's a bit of fun. They're trying to censor it because they know the impact that it is having and will have if it continues to circulate. They are terrified of information that exposes the narrowness, for a start, of what they want people to believe. And I know from traveling around the world that when people get access to this information, overwhelmingly their reaction is, my God, this makes so much sense of the world. That's what they don't want. But we have to 7.7 billion, 7.8 billion people cannot be controlled by literally a handful. If you go into the core of the core of the core of this, you'll probably get the people in full knowledge and where it's coming from into a single room. They cannot control humanity if humanity doesn't give its power away, doesn't give its perceptions away, which is its power. And so this process, people talk about we must stockpile weapons to fight the Illuminati. Well, that's what they want. They want conflict. They want violence.
Right.
They don't want us to see that this, what we call reality, is simply a holographic projection of collective human consciousness, just as our lives individually are a holographic projection which is experiencing our state of awareness. Someone thinks that they are just little me and have no power. Their life experience will reflect that perception. If you reevaluate self-identity and you say that all these labels that I give myself and are given to me, sexuality and race and religion and income bracket and culture, they're not who I am. They are what I am experiencing. They are what the real I, awareness, is experiencing. When you self-identify the I to I am the consciousness having that experience, I am not the experience, and you allow yourself to explore other explanations, which starts the process of the perceptual bubble starting to dilute and disintegrate, process I went through. And so many are going through now, then you start to, instead of seeing random events, you start to see patterns, you start to see pictures, you start to get it. It's this understanding, this expansion of awareness, that this whole control of information and control of perception is designed to stop happening. They are terrified of this happening. And this is why, in many ways, this explosion of censorship is almost a panic measure, because of what is actually happening, and they can see it's happening. So the stadium it's all played out in is perception. If you think that 5G, because that's all you get, mainstream everything, if you think that 5G is just a wonderful thing because you can download movies quicker in a few seconds, then you'll support it. You'll buy it. Oh, I'm going to get one of them 5G phones. But if you have expanded your awareness and allowed other perspectives in, you will say, hold on a minute. Never mind downloading a movie in seconds. Have you seen what this stuff can do psychologically and physically to people? It's a completely different way of looking at the world. And then these things can be challenged, but they can only be challenged if people become aware of them. And for that, they have to put aside what they've been told to believe and let their perceptions earn their place in your perceptions, not just take it because that's all you've ever heard. Let it earn it. Does this information make sense? Is it justified by the facts? What's another way of looking at this? And this is a process that so many people, far more than ever before, are going through. And it's very encouraging, but it is moving fast, and we don't have forever to head this off.
David, we're going to run out of time here. Tell us about the film. That must be exciting. Released on June 4th, so it's just been released.
Yeah, it was an amazing thing because I couldn't walk down a street in Britain in the early 1990s, mid 1990s without being laughed at. I mean, I was the crazy man, Britain's crazy man. This guy's going through a midlife crisis, and now there's a movie come out. And it was an American film company that approached me. Not because they support my work, but because they thought my story and the information I'm putting out would make a good movie. And I've not had anything to do with the editing, but they put it together, and I was very, very pleased with how they did, because it's not just a story about my life, Renegade. It's a story about my work. There's a phenomenal amount of information across all these subjects, because they basically the basic format is fly on the wall. They followed me round through about 4 countries. And I'm very, very pleased with it. And it's been enormously well received, which is very encouraging. And the thing that's pleased me most is that when the premieres were being played out, people were contacting me and saying, look, I've been into your work for years, but I took my friends along, or I took members of my family along who didn't know much about what you're doing. And they said they were blown away by what they saw in the movie. So that's really the thing that motivated me to do it, is this could be a vehicle to let more people than would normally see what the information is, to see it in a format that's very simple. It's literally a movie which is filmed by state-of-the-art cameras, editing, all of it. It's proper feature movie, but amazing information in it. And it's available on davidicke.com. People can watch it now if they like. And it's been very well received. And we went to #1 documentary in Britain on the first day, which was very, very encouraging.
Yeah, David, just a minute left here with you. You've got many, many books to your credit. If someone was to look at those titles, where would you recommend they start?
Everything you need to know but have never been told. Between those covers is a phenomenal amount of information which all connects together. Everything from the nature of reality to current world events, because all those things are fundamentally connected. And they're not random, and they're not apart from each other. They are fundamentally connected. And I've got another book I've just finished, actually, which is coming out in September, which is going to be, shall we say, seriously controversial. That will be very interesting to see how, quote, the system responds to that. Because ain't going to like it.
Well, David, thank you so much for being here. I hope you will agree to come back, because we've just we've just scratched the surface on all of these topics, and there's so much more we could get into. You've got the film out now. They can people can see it right on your website, davidicke.com. Everything you need to know but have never been told. Is that also available on the website?
Oh, absolutely. All my books are. There's loads of them on different subjects, and some of them are really far out subjects, but you open your mind and you see the world is not like we thought it was.
Thank you so much for being here and getting up so early to do it. We appreciate your time.
Pleasure, JV. See you again. Bye.
By the way, tomorrow night, who do we have? We're going to be talking about UFOs. I'm trying to remember exactly what we have coming up. David Moore, author, will be discussing his new book on the psychology behind the UFO phenomenon. And Thursday, Orion, are we still doing Scarlet on Thursday? Is that the deal?
TBA.
Okay. All right. So we'll figure that out. At some point, we'll have Scarlett Ravenswood on. She's a tarot card reader, and we'll talk about her work. And then Monday, after Friday's Best Of program, Del Bigtree will be with us. He's an investigative journalist, and we've been talking about this vaccination controversy for a long time, and it keeps coming up everywhere you look. In fact, David Icke has done a lot of work on it as well. And he's going to talk about that. He is the CEO of Informed Consent Action Network, and he'll talk about pharmaceutical tyranny and vaccines and some other things that his group is interested in pursuing and following and watching.
Talk about a controversial point of view.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff there. By the way, we've got about 20 seconds here. You recovered from Scarecon weekend?
Yeah, and I can still hear Art the Clown singing Be Our Guest from Beauty and the Beast.
Oh, at the karaoke night.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, good stuff. A lot of great times there. I still see you in the green face paint that you had on your there with.
Yeah, Frankenstein and my bride.
Yeah, it was awesome. All right, so that's going to do it for tonight. Tomorrow night, as I said, great program ahead with David Moore. It's Beyond Reality Radio. Thank you to everybody being here. We'll see you tomorrow.
Beyond Reality Radio is hosted by Jason Hawes and J.V. Johnson and produced by Alexandria Johnson and Slick Eddie Edwards for Entercom Radio. Beyond Reality Radio is distributed by Westwood One Radio Networks. Stop by our Facebook page and say hello. Follow the hosts on Facebook as well. For Jason Hawes, follow at jasonhawes.taps. For J.V. Johnson, follow at JVJ Paranormal. If you'd like to be a guest on Beyond Reality Radio or you have a suggestion for a guest, contact Slick Eddie Edwards at slickeddieedwards@gmail.com. Be sure to visit our chat room as well at beyondrealityradio.com. Thanks for listening.